And I am Stan DeFreitas. James is off right now, but he's on assignment, so we will have him in later, either in the show or certainly for next week. Wanted to go over, of course, the first thing would be Merry Christmas to everyone out there, and remember the reason for the season. Hopefully, everyone is enjoying life, and we're getting outside and enjoying the beautiful trees, the plants, the shrubs, the flowers. And I mean, we think of poinsettias at this time of year. We think of Christmas cacti. We think of many plants that flower during the holiday season. And it's one of the things that you can't put your favorite plant in the darkest corner and keep it well. Remember that plants photosynthesize food, they make energy, and they need to have energy, and that is from the light. So a bright window is usually best for, let's say, a poinsettia. Now, I know they're triggered into flowering by the long night, short day. That doesn't mean the quality of light that they get needs to be bad. It still needs to be a good light source. So I still think when you get through, you can take a lot of these poinsettias, you can put them into different areas in your yard and garden if you wish. Now, I know most people dump them out. And if you wish to do that, fine. I would probably at least save the soil and probably the container because that can be recycled. The soil is usually a good mixture of peat and perlite. And I assure you, your garden could use more of it. If you have a flower bed or you have a vegetable garden area, you need to increase the organic matter. One of the reasons we use large amounts of peat, we have Canadian peat, Michigan peat, even Florida peat. And one of the reasons that we add peat is that peat will help to hold moisture. And that makes it more effective and efficient, and you'll have better results. The reason commercial growers like to grow in perlite because it lets air in around it. Vermiculite actually gets to hold some of the moisture, and of course, peat moss holds moisture. Now, some parts of the world, peat has been mined. It's been used as a fuel source. People will sometimes use it. It's been used to just like coal. But typically in Canada, U.S., we've used peat quite a bit for using it as a soil enrichment or soil supplement. Peat moss is great in that it holds its weight in water pretty well. And that's pretty important in our Florida sand. As I always like to say when I'm giving one of the programs, which I've done hundreds of times over the years at different home shows, we have about 1% organic matter in our soil. So we use the term soil pretty loosely. We don't have very much for organic matter. Now, that's one of the reasons I save my coffee grounds, potato peelings, all the stuff gets recycled into my yard because I realize that the best solution to pollution is dilution. And your own backyard is probably better than filling up a landfill. So I take that. I'll take wood ash if I don't burn many fires because we're in Florida. Occasionally, if we get a cool night, I like to have a fireplace and I do like to light a log just to have that feeling. I don't really think I'm getting that much energy because if I did, I'd probably get like a Ben Franklin stove, and then you'd have something that actually was really efficient in taking that energy off of the log. But I'm using it more for a decorative source than I am really a true heat source. Who knows? The way things are going, I see we're going to have another power increase, I think of 11% starting in January. If you're a TECO subscriber. And one of the things I think is kind of amusing that everybody's going solar. And for a while, they would net meter and sell back your power that you had extra back to the power companies. Most of the power companies have said, we don't like that. And they got to the legislators, who we don't want to say can be bought, but can be bought. And now they usually are making sure that you pay at least a $30 minimum hookup, even if you have solar, just because they don't want you off the grid totally. They want to make sure that they can still get some energy or some money from you, even if it means basically nothing. There's technically a wire to your house, but even if you have extra power, they still don't want to buy it. But I won't go into that too much other than that type of thing hacks me off. Talking about plants and flowers, let's go back to that more favorably. Let me also mention, of course, James has started a company, and I along with him, but James is the broker. I must say that first. James, Dream It Real Estate. And if you're looking for two guys that you like, know, and trust because you've heard us for, in my case, 45 years on the radio and television, you might consider using us. I know you probably have some other friends and neighbors, and if you use them, that's fine too. But if you don't have somebody, it isn't your best friend, then you might think of using us. Now, I know some people will go, well, they can do a FISBO. Yes, you can. You're normally not going to make as much money. Maybe last year it didn't matter because everything just about sold for asking price or more. But things are changing. So everybody who thought, oh, my property is worth $3 million. Well, I had one case last year where somebody thought his property is worth $3 million. And somebody called me back this last year that we were helping with. And they said, look, I'm willing to offer 750. And I said, well, he won't take it. He wouldn't take it last year. So I realized, yes, you're probably right. His property has probably gone down in value. But, that's the way it is. If you don't need to sell it, hold it. If you have to sell it, then be prepared that you may have more of a negotiation than you had last year. That's just the way things are. Everybody who made money in stock, some people are still making money in stock, but it may not always be that rocket ship. A lot of stock has dropped about 30% overall. And I'm not doing a financial show, but I listen to the guys here that do financial shows, and I listen to other guys too, of course, all over the internet and on television. Sometimes they're right. I would say they are right about 50% of the time. So you could also take your quarter out of your pocket, flip it in the air, and you probably will come back with about the same result. But let me say, for you who wish to grow vegetables, for about every dollar you put in to the garden, you should get a $5 or $6 or $7 or $8 return. And that's not bad. Plus, what you sprayed on it, when you sprayed, what you sprayed. We don't always get everything checked perfectly if it's coming from all around the world. And half of our fruits and vegetables are coming from everywhere else in the world. So I don't want to put any fear monger into you, especially on such a happy beat day. I actually enjoy, one of the things I enjoy about gardening, just going outside and walking around a little. Now, I don't move around as well as I used to, but I still enjoy getting outside, breathing some fresh air, and seeing what's going on in the landscape. The birds. It's a neat thing to hobby to bird. James will call me up and say, hey, I just saw a red-crested whatever, or a this or that. And I don't know my birds nearly as well as I do plant material. And even with plant material, there are millions of plants out there. We know, different plants. There are so many species and so many hybrids constantly being changed and upgraded. So that is something that's always in flux. You've heard of where's the beef? Well, where's the bark? A lot of people are using mulch, and sometimes it's hard to find. If you're looking for that, cypress mulch or pine nuggets, obviously what they're doing is stripping the outside of the tree, which they usually use the inside of the tree for lumber. But when you're stripping a tree like that, there will be pine nuggets, there will be cypress. Certain people have different preferences for what they wish to use in the landscape. If you can, I like to put it about 2 to 3 inches thick. Why? Because you can keep the weeds down if you've got beds. I don't really like weeding, never have. And now that my movement is not as good as it used to be, getting down is one thing, getting back up is another. So something you never even think about when you're a youngster. You go, well, I'm always going to have everything perfect, and I'll always move like I always did. And of course, then the cruel world comes up and says, aha, things can be and will be different. Talking about different kinds of bark, of course, we said pine bark. There's pine straw sometimes is used. Some of the cypress mulch. Some of the wood chips can be of different kinds of wood.
and some people are using rubber. And I don't know. It's kind of like we were going to talk more about artificial turf. We may talk about that again in the future. I can see where, in, let's say, Tropicana, artificial turf is about the only thing you can use because you've got a roof. Many of the stadiums have gone to either artificial turf, or we can call it artificial grass, if you wish. It'll last about 20 years on average, and then it starts to break down. Last couple of times I did some home shows at Tropicana, I noticed that it didn't look quite as resilient as it did when I first saw it many, many years ago. Now, they may have replaced some of it over a period of time, but some of the players don't always like it because it's hard to land on the artificial turf, even though they put the little dressing into it, usually little rubber type beads that go into it to kind of soften it some. It usually does not have the soft factor, if you will, like you get from real turf. And some of the players, I know even KK, when he was with us, mentioned that, he was one of those guys who bounded, we always enjoyed, probably the best defensive center fielder I ever saw, who didn't mind racking his body up against walls like a hockey player to make a catch. And we're going to miss him. He was a great center fielder. As I say, probably the best center fielder I think I've ever seen. Now, if someone else can call in and say, oh, well, how about this guy here or there? Let us mention to you that we are here, of course, to answer your questions. If you have a problem or a question, you can actually go on the internet and let us know. And we want to tell you can call us locally. 813-289-1860 is our number. And you stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786, on the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside, in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity, and get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I am Stan DeFreitas, Mr. GT, Mr. Greenthumb. Been doing this for about 45 years. I know I don't look like I'm quite that old to have done this for that long. And here's your quarter. But glad to see we've got one of my old radio friends, Sandra Hall's looking. Usually see Sandra at the some of the I call our reunions, our radio reunions, usually people in radio and television who've been at it forever and a day. Sandra was one of the folks who usually makes it happen, along with a few of the others who are there. Certainly Guthrie. She is one of our Joy is usually one of the leaders in it too. She also does a show on, I think, WMNF. I'll give her a little plug. And just because I'm that kind of guy, it isn't all about me. She's a very talented lady. I remember Peg and I seeing her years and years ago. She was playing at one of the clubs out on the beach. And a great, well, organist, pianist, a lot of talent. And I wish I were half as talented in that respect as she is. Yeah, I can play C and G and E on the guitar, but after I get past that, and I can do a fairly good Elvis. But, not too many people are crowding around me for that. Typically, I have used my ability in horticulture to try to talk to people who are having problems. I noticed on my lime tree the other day, I've got a lime tree and it's having a lot of leaf miner. The leaves are curling up tight. I'm getting a little squiggly line in the leaf. This is a larval stage of a fly that actually eats between the upper epidermal and lower epidermal layer of the leaf. So it is a problem. I should spray it, but I didn't want to spray it because my lime tree is in bloom. And if it's in bloom, I don't want to kill the bees. So I suffer through a few leaves that aren't really as good as I'd like. I probably will spray it, but I won't spray it if I think I'm going to hurt the bees, because we need the bees. And anywhere that I can, I try not to, or I try to use something that is organic based first. But I will use chemicals when I think I have to. When I'm losing totally the crop, then, if I've got chewers, I may use something like Dipel. Dipel is made from a bacteria toxin. It's made from the Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a bacteria toxin that helps to kill caterpillars, but you could eat the vegetable the same day. So I like something that's edible, and typically the time I'm ready to harvest a cabbage to make some coleslaw or broccoli with some cheese, or whatever it may be, we're typically going to need to treat it. And if I treat it, I'll be treating it with something like the dipel or thuricide. That's Thuricide. I remember I had a program director say, well, why are you spelling that? And I said, well, can you spell it? And he goes, well, no. I said, okay, that's the reason I'm spelling it. So dipel or thuricide might be a control for the caterpillar that gets on there. You get a lot of leaf rollers on cabbages and broccoli, cauliflower. They're all in that same family. And so they're all equally opportuned as far as you'll see the little dingy moth come along, lay her eggs, and then you'll see that there can be, and normally is a problem. Now, one caterpillar, I might just pick it off. If I find 500 on there, then I'm probably going to spray. And if you do, you'll be in control. So it's just that simple. Talking about a lot of the veggies that I'm always amazed. Every time I go to Publix or wherever, I see that the price of things has increased. And in fact, I was talking to Publix one time. I said, hey, you guys should be a sponsor. And they go, oh, why would we want to help sponsor people to grow their own stuff? And I said, because I assure you, they will have more appreciation for what you have when it looks good, and they'll still be buying stuff from you. But the guy, talked to me like I had 3 heads in Lakeland. Why would they ever want to sponsor anybody that would help other people? No. We want our typical woke ad made by woke people that are going to give you a scenario that is not anywhere near what any of us live. But other than that, keep on ruling. Talking about some of the plants and veggies, grass right now it's slowed down. Now, thank God for that. We don't have to worry as much about mowing all the time. It also means when you have a problem, and let's say fungus can be a problem sometimes, brown patch starts off as a small spot and it kind of grows. Typically, chinch bug won't be a major problem in St. Augustine during the winter season. It likes it hot. Usually you'll see chinch bug near the driveway, sidewalk, some of the hottest areas in the yard. Fungus, on the other hand, tends to be where the moisture holds, and fungus can kill too. So you may have to spray with a general fungicide. You can buy them at your local nursery, garden supply store. And there again, if I had a nursery I wanted to work with right now, I'd be mentioning that nursery. But since I'm not, and they're not sponsoring me, I guess you can go to the big box stores and buy your stuff there. So anyway, it's just a matter of, if we either all push together or, somebody said, hey, how come you don't mention some of the fertilizers you used to? And I said, well, they don't seem to need to sponsor. If they don't need to sponsor, I don't need to mention them. Just that simple. That's kind of the way marketing and advertising, I should say, works. So we are here. One of the things I might also add is check your pH. If you're getting ready to put in a spring garden, if I'm in a location near you, I normally bring my pH tester, and we can simply test your soil and let you know if you need to add dolomite, which I doubt, or if you need to add sulfur, which is more the case in Florida. Now, up north, normally you had to add lime, hydrated lime or dolomite lime. Normally dolomite because it had magnesium with it, so you're getting an extra element that the plant uses. Remember, magnesium is one of the top 6 elements that plants use. Everybody knows about, 666 or 888 or 1648 or 101010. And those numbers are for your nitrate, phosphate, and potassium. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, always going to be in that listing. Nitrogen gives you green and growing. Phosphorus helps in root formation and flower production. And potash kind of gives you that overall strength that you're needing. Now, a lot of fertilizers today are going to be very low in phosphorus because they're worried about polluting the bays. As I've said before, I don't know. If it's in your backyard and you're fertilizing your palm tree in your side yard, I'm not so sure you are the guilty person. I'm not sure you're the person that should feel so bad because you want to keep your palm looking healthy. But, I said the same folks who are going to look at you and go, bad, 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 bad. Where are these millions of people when, the phosphate plant dumps millions and millions of gallons of polluted water into the bay? And if you don't think that stays around for a while and causes algae bloom, then I've got some really great property about 100 miles out that I can sell you in the middle of the Gulf. Anyway, let me not get on my high horse too high there. Some of the container plants we like to grow, of course, flowering plants. If you're going to get 6 of petunias or 6 annuals, you may find it just easier to go to the nursery, buy the 6-pack or 8-pack, or buy a couple of them and fill that bed, as opposed to it's harder to grow from seed. If you grow from seed, you need to probably get a sterile medium. And there we go back to our peat moss and perlite or vermiculite, something that's sterile. Peat moss has been under the water for millions of years, so it's naturally sterile. Perlite, vermiculite are both exploded at thousands of degrees, so they're naturally sterile. So that's one of the reasons when you look at a nurseryman on why they do grow their plants, if they're growing them from seed, they grow in a sterile medium, because otherwise we have damping off. There's a whole list of fungi that can be a problem. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Plants, of course, are my main favorite thing. We can also talk about real estate. Where's the market going? How are things going to be? How do you get loans? Stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at askmrgreenthumb.com. Broken air conditioner? Keep your home's AC running smoothly all year long with Easy Breezy AC. With thousands of active commercial and residential customers, Easy Breezy AC is Tampa Bay's most trusted HVAC company. Easy Breezy AC cares about those in need. Donate 2 cans of food and receive $20 off a $79 service call. Go to easybreezyac.com and use promo code GREENTHUMB for an additional $10 off your service call. Call 727-856-HVAC. Life's hard. Comfort's not. Did you know that Stan DeFrida's Mr. Green Thumb can come to your house and examine your plants, trees, and palms? His knowledge can help you become the envy of your neighborhood with lush, green, healthy trees that don't just live, but thrive. Palms and oak trees are part of what makes Florida a beautiful place to live, but they get diseases and are often cut down. We offer ways to save your trees. Call or text Stan today at 727-423-4794 or go online to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's AskMrGreenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And James is off on assignment, but I am here. This is Wednesday, so we can take some stuff through Facebook or through Google. I guess we've got Brian there in master control. If he sees something, he'll send it on to me. Not sure how, but I don't know. The old days, they used to write stuff down. We'll figure out a way to get it. But you can talk to my ear if somebody has something to say. We have Mr. Ken had a question, and he said, what do you do with these Christmas trees after we're through with them? Well, a lot of the cities will have recycling places where they can take them, and they'll either, I guess, take them to the dump, or maybe they will grind them up and, probably could be used as a fuel source. I know in Pinellas County, they reburn a lot of the garbage and make energy from it. I'm not sure how effective that is these days. I know originally when they came out with the concept, they said it was going to actually save people money. After it came out, I never heard about saving people money ever again. But that is something that they did say very heavily when they were saying we're going to put a way to burn all this refuse up. And it makes sense. A lot of the paper, cardboard, I mean, you think about Christmas, how much of that extra paper you have, and it can be used as a fuel source. Probably better than burying stuff, because how much room do you have to bury? I don't know. It's a lot of recycling, I think, is important. It's something that you can do. And many people recycle their containers. Many people recycle the soil. If you have a tree that has a root ball, you can plant it into your landscape. Some people like that. We typically don't grow some of the varieties down here as well as they do in other parts of the country. I always think it's kind of amazing to me that we have a lot of trees coming in from Wisconsin and other places that you wouldn't necessarily think that they could afford to ship. But Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, there are a lot of places, and there are some in Florida too, that are growing Christmas trees. So it is a commodity that can be regrown. It takes a number of years to usually get them up to where they are ready to be a Christmas tree. Typically, if you were going to use a tree, I mean, the needles and stuff could be ground up, can be used as a mulch. It will disappear just like all the other leaves and grass. You see all that grass that you leave on your yard, it naturally gets recycled. It's one of my problems with people who want to go with artificial turf. I see where there's a need for it in certain places. We talked about ball fields, maybe soccer fields, places where, the maintenance cost to keep grass up is quite a bit, especially with fuel costs going up. I do know of one person who has an electric mower, and they're using their electric mower. Now, electric mowers with cords have been around for, 60, 70 years. But I was reading something the other day. I think it was 1834. They came up with the first electric car. Now, it wasn't called Tesla, but the concept has been around for a long time. I think it took into the 1852 or something. They made a kind of a car that was actually usable. The concept can be there. Electric has its place. My problem is we're not ready for it totally yet. Most people can't spend $80,000 for a car and justify it because you're going to save on some fuel. Most of us would love to do that, but, cost is still a reality for the average person. I talked to one of my buddies who has a Tesla, and he goes, gosh, love it. He says, I'll put it against my Porsche over there. And he says, and in the, short distance, I'm going to win. I thought, great. It makes sense. You got all that torque, all that energy, and you've got it right now. And the old days, I was one of those guys when I was a youngster would loved having my Camaro. I had a 67 Camaro with a 327 Holley 4-barrel Hertz speed shifter. I could pass anything but a gas station. But, as time has gone on, I was going to say gas back then was cheap. And I still didn't like having to fill the tank all the time. So a lot of those things change. I think as we get older, we sometimes are looking for something. Now I look for something that's more efficient. How far will the car go on the amount of fuel that I have? I've heard from some people too that have said, oh, electric battery can't ever be recycled. Well, I don't think that's true. I think electric batteries can be recycled. Now, I don't know about some of the old ones, but some of these, the biggest problem with the idea of getting electric batteries is mining lithium is kind of a dirty business. And it's one of the reasons that we tend to do it around the world, where if it's out of sight, it's kind of out of mind. And I'm not saying that's correct, but that's kind of the way things are going. A lot of the electric proponents for cars, probably the biggest country certainly is China. And there's always a debate there about, do we want American jobs being done in China? And if you're making the whole car over there, that's kind of questionable. Maybe you might be wanting to spend some of that money to create plants and jobs in America. At least that's my idea. So, no, I haven't decided to run for president yet. But, Brian says, hey, you might be a better choice than what we have now. And that's true. That is very true. Of course, I saw something the other day. It said, what was it? Fetterman and had Fetterman and Biden together. And it said underneath there, a no-brainer. No, cha-ching. Oh, not going to pick on those two guys. But since I guess you're going to be the president and the senator, it might be nice if you had a little better ability to think. But let's go back to things I can change, and that is adding organic matter to your soil. I will say that mulch is good. Grass clippings I save. I usually put some of those around some of my avocados and stuff to help hold moisture. As it breaks down, it's giving you some food value. We talked a little bit earlier about NP and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. There are 3 more elements that we would consider macro elements. And I usually ask Gordon. Sure. Okay. Joey. Okay. Joey wants to know, okay, hey, my old friend, the Wisconsin gardener, what do you recommend for scab treatment on an indoor orange tree? Okay. The Wisconsin gardener, Joey, I will say probably take it outside and I'd spray it with copper, liquid copper, neutral copper. You can get it at almost any nursery garden supply store, hopefully one of your sponsors. And they'll have something. If not, Dithane M45 would also probably work. Dithane M-45. I like it. It's copper can stain. So you got to watch if you take a little, let's say a citrus out and you put it on your walkway and you sprayed it with copper, you could have a blue walkway. But if you spray with I'd tell you to spray it in the grass. And of course, I'm a little bit worried about how long. I'd wait till your temperature is going to be above freezing. And I'm not sure about Wisconsin. I know the Wisconsin gardeners, they do their whole show is on Wisconsin area, that area, I guess Midwest in general. I know they've taken on some more stations and I'm glad for them. But any of the fungicides will generally work on scab. You need to kind of catch it early. If a leaf is really bad, probably taking a pair of scissors and cutting the leaf off, because, getting rid of a pathogen, and that's what we have with scab. Scab is a fungus, and we have fungi. They're all around us. There are thousands and probably millions of fungi spores all around us all the time. And most of the time, the plant and or us, we are strong enough to withstand that. But then again, I have talked to guys who were in Korea, were in Vietnam. Let's say they were in the water all the time and they had their feet in the trenches, if you will, the swamp. They will have fungi on their feet that in some cases they have never been able to totally get rid of. And yes, there are things that you can use. I know a lot of folks are big on tea tree oil and different combinations. But when you think about it, you go, well, fungi doesn't matter to me. Well, fungi does matter because we have it. It can be a problem in people. It can be a problem, certainly on your plants. Smut is a fungus. I mean, it's funny. I spent most of my life trying to kill fungi. And yet, two of the chemicals that I take to keep me alive, the Japanese were brewing soil and came up with a fungi that helps to keep me alive. So I thought it's funny here, the whole circle of life. I have fought most of my life. People have said, hey, I've got a fungus, come out and treat this, would you? And I have. And yet a fungi is two of the chemicals I take. One is an offshoot of penicillin. I take a mycophenolate, and I also take a material called Prograph. And both of those, it's also called tacrolimus, are offshoots of fungi and bacteria. So it's funny. We have a problem, but we think about penicillin, which is a fungus, and it, obviously saves lives with infection. And yet in the wrong situation, it, certain fungi certainly can be a death sentence. If your blood gets to be septic, and many times in the hospital, you're getting poked all the time, it's a perfect breeding ground for potential problems. Now, they try to keep things as sterile as possible in a hospital, but it can be and is a major factor that you need to worry about. So and typically, you're not taking a lot of showers and baths if you've got, hoses and tubes stuck into you. And I have been through that, and don't miss that at all. I, of course, did 4 of my radio shows from my hospital bed, partly because I got bored and I just thought, how much television can you watch? And I did, but I enjoyed at least being part of my own show. And I would call in and talk to James, who was kind enough to kind of help do the show. We do a show together. James is really a broker. Real estate is his big thing. I tend to help James with real estate in that I'm also an agent, and that I can help. I think I'm good with people. If you've got problems, I like to solve problems. And I do the same thing with trees. I go out and look at trees and say, hey, this problem is arised, and we need to figure out a way to either inject it to keep it alive, keep it healthy. And often that means either putting a fungicide or pesticide or nutrient or combination into a tree. Well, we're still with you. We've got one more segment coming up. I appreciate the contact there from the Wisconsin Gardener. Stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Want to talk real estate? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online, aflre.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786, on the web at staffordtreesvc.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And we're here. Of course, we're saying Merry Christmas to you. Hopefully you are enjoying Christmas. I know for a lot of folks, it is their happiest holiday of the year. Certainly, people are traveling all over the country. And I wish you a safe and happy trip if you're listening to us, be it computer today. We're, of course, taping 2 shows. This show will air on Christmas, but or say this show will be. I think this will be one of the last segment. Will be on Christmas, and then I'm going to be doing a live show this coming Sunday. I'll be live. So I do a live show so I can answer questions, but we can also answer questions even today, Wednesday, if you're one of my Facebook friends, or if you're looking in and you have a question about your trees, shrubs, and plants. I know with Google, everybody can become an expert, but identifying those problems are sometimes part of the problem. Plumerias, everybody likes to have plumerias. They all get into rust problems. I've never seen a plumeria hardly that didn't get into rust, which is another fungus. Now, if you've had a bad problem with that rust, you probably, now I know they look like, I used to joke with my old friend Mark, who I did a radio show with for years. Mark has passed away, and I'm sorry for that. I used to kid Mark. I said, well, they're sausages during most of the winter season. And they are. They're from Hawaii area. At least that's where they're mostly grown. They are grown in Florida quite a bit. They are beautiful, beautiful flowers, beautiful fragrance. But during this time of year, when you get ready to, some people will bring them in containers to protect them. If we have a really hard freeze, most poinsettias, or I should say frangipanis, plumerias, don't like really hard freezes. So people will have them in containers. They'll either cover it over to the ground or they'll bring them in. If you do make a cover, let's say a plastic cover, a little mini greenhouse, make sure it doesn't touch the plant, because where the cold touches that plastic, it will move right through. And I know we don't think about cold here in Florida, but I know just the other day we were talking, I think it was 60 years ago, we had 18 degrees in the Tampa Bay area. Can you imagine 18 degrees? And it stayed, no, it didn't get any warmer than up into the 30s. So we actually had pipes in some cases that I remember going, we had like a drinking fountain in the little grammar school that I was at, actually with North Shore Elementary in St. Pete. And I'd touch the drinking fountain, and there was ice in the drinking fountain because it was in the breezeway, back then, like an open corridor, but they had one in the kind of a breezeway area. Don't know if it's still there or not. Haven't been to the school, even though I lived right across the street from the school. I was amazed that we had ice in the where you turned on the spigot for the water, the little handle. And I was pretty amazed that had occurred. So we can have cold like that. Back then, I remember people were talking about global cooling. We're talking about mini ice ages coming back again. And not that couldn't happen too. The world has gone through a number of ice ages and areas where it was both colder and hotter than it is today. I know we always like to think, everybody tells me every year, oh, it's the hottest it's ever been. In some cases, it's true, or it's been cold. Now, a lot of people will say, well, we're not having just, global cooling climate or global warming. We are having climate change. And yes, we probably are, but we have always had some climate change. I'm not saying man isn't partly responsible for things today, but I tend to think we could blow ourselves totally off the world and the world would probably come back somehow differently. It has before. So, when you start to say this is what's going to happen. I remember I laughed when Al Gore said, we're going to have water. It's going to be over everything. It's going to be like 20 miles inland. I guess the Democrats don't really totally believe that either, because, Barack Obama bought some property on Martha's Vineyard a couple of years ago. So I guess he's not too worried that we're going to be covered over with water in the next, 100 years. Don't think it's going to happen right away. I mean, I guess it could. Probably shouldn't let people build their houses, 20 feet from the beach, but everybody likes the idea of being on a beach until a hurricane comes in and then destroys your property. That can be a debatable thing on where we should let people build. Historically, people like to be right near the water. We like to be near the river. We like to be near a lake, and that's fine. Rivers tend to swell. Ocean property is not always so desirable when you have a major hurricane come along. Now, we got lucky this last year here in Tampa Bay. Now, down below us, many areas, the poor folks in deep Southwest Florida, it looks like a bomb went off. There are areas down there where there was boats on top of boats and houses that look like someone had put a bomb through them. And my heart goes out to those folks. Many of them are still recovering. People are still doing work down there, either rebuilding and getting rid of some of the problems that occur. And of course, when a house gets flattened or even a mobile home, there are things that, get recycled. The metal gets recycled, the wood gets put into a dump site, and people usually rebuild. And that's the process. I will say one of the things I admire about man is that we have the ability to say, okay, we got knocked down, but we will come back. We will handle what we had, and we will try to go on forward in a good fashion. Some of the things you might think about, for folks, for last minute gifts that you didn't get someone, work gloves, pots, new hoses, work tools, trowels, shovels, things that you can use in the yard and garden. And if you've never done much work in the yard and garden, I encourage you to at least do what you can do. Now, I know as conditions become tougher for folks when they sometimes get to be older, it's tougher to work in the garden and yard like you did. But if you can get out there and sit and enjoy, see those butterflies, see those birds, look at the grass. I miss be nuts. I love the smell of fresh cut grass. I go by and go, let me roll down the window so I can smell that smell that you get. Give me a glass of iced tea on a summer day, and I think that is just fantastic. I love the smell of some of the Christmas trees. You go by the areas where the Christmas tree lots are, you can smell that great fragrance. It's a thing of beauty. I like it that people decorate. I'm not doing too much decorating because I just can't get up on ladders and do stuff like I used to. But I used to enjoy doing that. I'd put lights all over, or I should say the lovely Mrs. GT and myself. She probably did more than I did, to be totally honest. Getting lights out around, we used to put around the deck and stuff, which I thought is nice. Now my young neighbors are doing something that we used to do. And that's fine. That's kind of, passing of the torch. It's now on them to make the neighborhood look pretty. And of course, John and Carol usually do. And certainly Jesse and Mechie have their lights up. And we all have something to be thankful for. If you've got life, you've got a reason to be here. And there's always a reason. Take time to read some books when it's cold and weather gets a little bit chilly and you don't want to go outside. Don't forget about reading. I know we all have our, cell phone in hand these days, and I understand that. And you can get a lot of information in a hurry, but it's not quite the same as having a magazine in your hand or having a book in your hand and enjoying that as well. So don't forget the library. And yes, folks, it's a library. I cringe every time I hear an announcer talk about the library. And sometimes they're big time newscasters. And I go, how did you get to New York, Chicago, California, and you misuse words so badly? Anyway, I guess I do on occasion, but I'm here to try to help you. If you've got some plant questions, send me pictures. I like to see pictures. You can describe your problem, but it's harder for me to tell. If I can see it, it makes it easier. Yes, I like doing home calls. or I should say, usually James goes with me. If there's a solution to the problem, and there normally is, I usually have James doing the injections, doing that part of it for me. And I know that we can often save trees. I've saved pines that should have died 20 years ago that are alive. I've saved large oak, Tarpon Springs, that should have died 25 years ago. We kept it going by injecting. So I know my track record works. We can help save that tree, and makes logical sense. Save it. Have a Merry Christmas. I enjoy all of you.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.